So, welcome, Raine. I've seen you're basically jack of all trades in terms of filmmaking because
Sure.
you're credited as composer, editor, cinematographer, writer, just everything. Okay. So, my question is, did you always want to become a director, or did you just try to figure out like which role you like the most?
The majority of those roles that you're seeing come about because it's quite hard to, when you don't have many contacts when you start out, it's quite hard to get going. So you generally, like on the short film, you might pick up a camera. Like on my first short film, actually, I had a DP on it, Michael Spry. On my second one, I didn't actually. That was more or less me doing that. But on the actual feature film, obviously, there was 2 DPs that got involved on that. I didn't have to do any of that. That was predominantly just directing. So it was kind of like by a sort of needs must type thing, really, the other roles. But the side of the composing, the music, well, I come from a musical background. So, that wasn't too much of a stretch for me. Something that I wanted to do. The editing side, which is obviously on the feature film, I did predominantly most of the editing. Once again, it was about contacts. It was about actually being able to get to reach editors to work with. So at the start of that, I had to cut it myself. And then Otti came onto it a bit later and did a sort of snip here and there, tidying it up.
So because you have all these skills, are you a control freak?
Probably.
Oh.
Probably. I don't know. Maybe. I suppose I have a very strong vision of what I want to see happen within a film. Obviously, when you write it yourself, it's quite controlling anyway. But obviously, it's very, very good to be open to other people. On a set, like on the feature film particularly, I was very open to the input from the actors and obviously from the DPs and the art department, etc. So it's not like I'm not. I think it's kind of like it's not like a gentle controlling that I have.
Yeah,
it's because you have such a strong vision in your head. I find one of the things which is the biggest challenge is taking what's in your head, sort of like getting it across to the other department so that that person entirely understands what you're talking about. That space in between is quite a dangerous gap from you to them. It can really alter things. So, I suppose there is a bit of a control freak there.
Good. Yeah.
What about you? Are you a control freak?
Something in between, but
okay.
I'm pretty much trying to understand every side of it. So I'm trying to be as skilled as I can. So I guess, I'm very similar in having like what I want in my head.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So tell us about The Village in the Woods. Like, can you just shortly tell my listeners and viewers what it is about without spoilers, obviously?
So it's a bit of a throwback to the films from the 70s, sort of like the early 70s. So it follows a couple who are doing an inheritance fraud, which is a thing where people will attempt to take on inheritances by posing as somebody else. But they're basically lured in by these villagers. And essentially the joke is on them and leads to their demise. But thematically, it's about the rich versus the poor. And so it has that thematic tone that's underneath it. And, if you watch it carefully, you'll see that there's certain hints towards that, about how the rich can often operate around the poor and possibly manipulate them for their own deeds, and their own good.
So you wrote this, and what inspired you to do this? Like the story, did you have it like for a couple of years in your head, or was it?
No, no, I didn't actually, not on that. This wasn't a story I had running around in my head for years or anything. It was literally the village that I lived in had a I say run down. It's open, the pub is, the one that's in the film, but it was more or less next door. So I was using the Robert Rodriguez style. It was just use what you've got And literally we did that. Initially, it was meant to be a crew of probably 5 people. And this was where I was probably going to DP it. So it was going to be very sort of loose on the shoulder, a lot of quick zoom ins and things like that. And then as soon as other people started to get involved in the project, especially people like Richard Hope, Therese Bradley, Rebecca Johnson, all quite known British TV actors, it just sort of elevated. And it went from being what was a crew of 5 to a crew of 65. It was a couple of Panelux trucks rolling into that village. So from where I was going to be using small LED lights, we were using like 20K lights. It changed massively. And was a huge headache because our home had changed into the production office. So our little 2-bed home, which was next door to the pub, that was the production office. So there was just people everywhere, all over this village, and it was really tough to get away from it. And to be honest with you, this carried on for me personally, because I was cutting the film at home. You'd be cutting it, I'd be looking at that pub as an example. You get up, you want to rest, you want to break. So you go outside the back garden, look across, there's the frame of what I've just been cutting. So it's really like quite claustrophobic. And I think that comes across in the film as well, which is interesting because there's a feeling of claustrophobia in there. Yeah. Despite it being so sparse and empty and remote, there's a feeling like it suffocates the people in a little bit. And maybe that's because that's the way I felt at the time as I was cutting it, Would
you recommend to anyone to film in the location where they live?
Well, maybe, but I think in hindsight, I'd probably say yes, but maybe only if you were doing it maybe with a crew of 5. Like if you're doing it with a very nimble crew, because the interesting thing was in 2017, when we went back and shot, we didn't have like a crew of 65. It was a lot smaller. Mm-hmm. It was kind of like a core crew of, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, I think probably like 15 people. And it was far more efficient though, in the way it was run, it's like more oil and it was better. I think probably that had a lot to do with me, obviously, because I understood more about the process from having gone through 3 weeks of it in 2016. But I think that, you could use your home, but maybe just with a smaller crew. It is quite invasive.
Yeah.
That amount of people around all the time in your home, and you can't escape. I think it's important to look after your mental health on a shoot. Definitely. And if you're feeling very, very sort of overwhelmed by the sort of people everywhere and you can't get away, I think that can have a negative effect for sure.
So I have read that you actually had some paranormal experience and activity during the filming. I'm very interested in that. So can you explain, you think it was real or, because I read that you caught it on camera as well.
Yeah, it's actually in the film. So that's what's great about it. So we're shooting the scene where Robert Vernon, comes into the main house, which is where Maddie lives. Mm-hmm. And there's all these wicker totems hanging on the ceiling, and he comes into there. And the secret, the moment when not to give anything away, but the moment when the door opens.
I thought that was the moment.
This is it. This is absolutely it. So what happened is that happened. And we thought, it's probably just wind drafts or whatever. It's a beautiful old house, this place, Edels. It was built sort of early 1800s, beautiful place. And then it did it again on cue, which was really weird. This is so strange. And so on the third time when it did it, I think it's the first one which we kept in the cut of when the door opened, because he reacted to it. So I just changed the shot a bit because it was just so nice the way he reacted. Yeah. But the third time that it did it, I said, and I just straight up said it, and I think I've probably got the footage. I said, can you close the door? Please. Can you please close the door? And the door closed. The door closed. The door literally closed, and everybody just went. Uh, it was just really, really weird, really, really strange. And straight up happened. So I kept that in the film. And we worked around it, obviously, and we changed that scene a little bit.
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, it seemed like a wind in a way, but then did you, because
it's a door closing after the fact, which was the thing that got me.
Exactly.
Because fair enough. But the most strangest thing about it is that it did it on these 3 cues.
Yes, that's like so strange.
And it's a tough one, this, because not to sort of talk about someone who's passed away in the wrong light, and I would never want to do that. So, but the young lady who was meant to go back to that house that's associated to the family, when she went back there, she sadly passed away from cancer, but she was really, really into the arts and really into theatricals and things like that. So part of me kind of wonders if that was her who was there playing.
Wow. How can you live there? Oh my God. It's
beautiful house though. But the ambience in that house is so lovely. You can see that it's a proper nice family home. Yeah, but personally, I don't really believe in those sort of things.
Okay.
But when I seen that happen, it did make me think, okay, and of course, from actually saying it and it doing it on cue, that was a bit weird. That was a weird bit, I thought.
What was the most time-consuming scene that you filmed, and why?
I think probably the most time-consuming thing was shooting the beast in the woods at night. And once again, that was part of that actual scene which you see in the dream sequence. That was actually part of the original ending. But unfortunately, there was a costume malfunction from the chap, Phil Martin, who's playing the beast. He's like 7'2", I think. He'll correct me on this. Maybe 7'4". He's massive. He had these, as you see in the film, he's got to look like he's a satyr. He's got the sort of hoofed feet and the haired legs, and so his costume tore at the back. And his bottom was showing, and it didn't look correct. So that was quite difficult. But the other thing as well, which was really difficult about it, was that obviously it's you're shooting in the woods. It's nighttime. It's winter. It's cold. People are getting tired. People are getting frustrated. We're sort of 2 weeks into the shoot now, so people are definitely getting tired. It's the setups. We're using 2 cameras at that time. So we're using 2 areas. One is, let me remember, one is locked and one is on Bernd's shoulder, and the other one is on a Steadicam rig, moving around, trying to get as much coverage as possible. But still, the time element comes in, is that you're trying to orchestrate so many different elements at the same time. In fact, that scene, and along with the party night in the pub, because that, once again, that is all being shot almost like a stage play playing out, various take after take after take, but with once again, did we use 1 or 2? I think we might have used 2 cameras. Maybe one was locked off, and then we've got Bernd on his shoulder again, moving in and out with everybody. But those sort of things take time, because it's lighting. Bernd's trying to light the scene so that he can move around within it, and that there's no shadows falling off people's faces, etc., etc. So those sort of things did take a bit of time to do, and I do believe that probably took all night to try and get that.
Oh my God.
They're hard going. In hindsight, I'd probably do it a bit differently now, but at the time, maybe I didn't know any better. So
okay, so how would you do it now?
If I was doing, say, the pub scene, I would probably wouldn't go for the on the shoulder routine of walking through people and getting. I like the fact that people perform. That they're free to perform, but I think that the stronger your vision is, if you can get your shots down beforehand. So that's the way I do it. I do it with close-ups, mediums, etc., etc. It felt like at the time that would be quicker and easier that way around. Mm-hmm. But in hindsight, I don't think it was. I think it probably would, because there's just so many, and you're like, oh, I don't know, I didn't get that. And,
okay.
Or did we get that? Did we get that reaction? And of course, as you know, you always need good reactions. It's not just what people are saying, you need everybody else's reaction in the room. So, I'd probably do it differently that way, probably lock it off a bit more,
That's very interesting, because I would also say that you having the camera on the shoulder and, being able to move would be quicker in a way than doing the medium close-ups separately.
I think it is. If you're doing that type of sort of almost kind of documentary realism kind of style product that you want to do for the end of it. But because in The Village in the Woods, obviously we had a lot of track shots as well. We had a lot of traditional shots. It wasn't necessarily an on the shoulder type of thing. Mm-hmm. And so I think that probably played into that as well. Thinking about that now, is that you're trying to play into the style of what you've already shot. You've got to. You can't just suddenly jump out the box unless it's on purpose for some reason. And this, to be honest with you, this wasn't going to be like that. So, I think if I'd originally gone back to doing what I was going to do at the start, and there's going to be a crew of 5, and it was me and a soundie, even though it would have obviously been difficult for me communicating with the actors a certain way, it probably would have been a hell of a lot quicker, because I would have known exactly what I wanted, and I would have been moving myself around in that space. But when you're always working with someone else and they're moving through that space, then it's amazing how many of those little minutes add up. Start extending it out. So you've got to be very lean. You've got to be on your toes with that, for sure.
So was making a feature more difficult in reality than you thought? Or was it, so a lot of my listeners are aspiring filmmakers and also directors who made shorts, and now they want to lean into feature, but maybe they think they're not ready yet. Or like, is there a moment when you say like, I'm ready, or you just do it?
I don't think there is. I don't really think there is. Yeah, I think that it's probably the best film school you'll ever do. Yeah. I think what you learn doing the actual feature, and not just the actual shooting of it, the actual seeing the sale of it, and understanding those elements, and understanding what you get from that about genre. Because obviously when you're doing shorts, you probably want to hit on genre, but you can be far more experimental, I feel, within the shorts. Yeah. When you start going into features and you've got investors involved, you want them to get a return. That's one of the main things that you're thinking about in the back of your head. I'd say that the things that you learn from doing the feature is priceless. I don't actually think that many of the times that you could even put it into a book, the things you learn, they're just in there. You just understand them. But one of the things, as an example, would be with genre. So if you're doing a horror, but you're not for example, every 10 minutes hitting something spooky or hitting something blood-like or whatever, you've got to understand that that's going to be a more difficult sale down the road. Right. It doesn't matter if it's good or not. That's not really the point. The thing is that for sales agents, for distributors, there's this certain thing that needs to be sold, and it's within that genre, and it sits in this box. So you learn that through doing the feature, I feel, because you go through the sales process. I feel like when you're actually on set, the dynamics are just so different than from a short film, because you're dealing with other people's money every day. So, I mean, on Sound the Village in the Woods, maybe it's not huge amounts of money, but it could be anything from, maybe we were burning through maybe like $5,000 to $7,000 a day, shooting. So you're aware of that. I think when you do a short and you're like a tiny crew, I mean, you might not be, you might have a huge crew, but the point of the matter is you're doing something for a commercial sale, and that's very different. And I think, like, if you want to do a feature, just go for it and do it. you'll learn enormous amounts.
And when you go into making feature films, do you want to go back to making shorts from time to time? How do you feel about this? Or you just want to continue to do features from now on?
Yeah, well, I think about doing shorts. I'm doing a feature film next year, and I'm slating to do one in 2023 as well. And I do think about doing shorts. But shorts, they still take up a lot of time. That's a problem that I find. And it's with writing, because I'm writing my own stuff. My writing takes up a lot of my time in that respect. So at the moment we're like draft 3 we're on draft 4 of the next feature film. And so it's a lot of work. And when I think about doing a short, it's kind of like, I'm excited to get back on set. That's the one thing that really excites me about it. The time element. It's that. For me personally, it's that at the moment. I'd love to do some more shorts if I had some great ideas for them. They're really, really condensed little babies, aren't they, shorts? You've got to really... It's interesting because with a feature film, obviously there's seemingly this longer amount of time to get to your climax, to hit that mid, breaking into act 2. You've got these little elements where you can build up character. But in a short, the ones that sometimes I watch where they don't work particularly very well, it's that characterization doesn't get enough build up underneath them.
Yeah.
There's a real art. So it's my hat off to people who really pull off great little short films, because I think maybe short films to some degree in an artistic sense are somewhat harder to tell a story. When I look at it now from this perspective, because of such a short amount of time that you get to deliver that punch at the end, So
the last question, which you kind of touched on, is what's the future? So if you can tell a little bit about, are you going to stick with the horror, or you're going to go somewhere else with the genre?
Yeah, I'm not doing a horror next. I'm doing a drama, which touches into a bit of crime. I can't really say too much about it at the moment. It touches on bits of surfing as well. Very character driven. And that's about that. But I'm not doing horror this time round. Maybe I've got this other project idea for my third feature, and it sort of borderlines into horror, and it keeps going like, I'm a horror, and I keep going like, no, you're not. Let's take you back.
It's arguing with you.
yeah, it is, because it's kind of got like these really sort of like dark, intoxicating ideas in it about religion, and religion covering up something in suburbia, and all these vibes. And there's like part of me really just feels like, I don't know if I really want to do it in horror, because in horror, as much as I like some horrors, not all horrors, I'll admit, but some horrors, there is that thing that I said in genre, that there's a certain calling card in horror where you've got to kind of almost lean onto the tropes all the time. And I feel like in drama, it's a bit more expansive. You can explore things like, say, for example, in the thriller genre, you can lean into action. You can lean into horror as well a little bit, like think about Silence of the Lambs. Yeah, this film just keeps bloody bugging me into like, be a horror. I'm like, no, I don't want you to be a horror. Pull you back. So yeah, maybe I'll do another horror after that. But the second one is most certainly a drama.
Great. Okay. Thank you for your time. And I wish you good luck with everything. And I tell everybody to go watch The Village in the Woods on Prime.
Because it's on Prime, Apple TV. It's around the world now. Open to 79 cinemas in Russia 7 weeks ago. So that was good.
Brilliant.
So it's out there. Easy to find.
Yes, and easy to watch. Awesome.
Absolutely. Of course.